Talktainment Radio Worldwide Sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Well, good morning and welcome to TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. And you are in touch with the Compensatory Concept with Neely Fuller Jr. I am Mr. Bobby, the co-host, and this is radio the way it should be heard. Now, if you would like to get in contact with the show to talk to Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., you may do that by calling 1-877-932-9766, and we will make every attempt to answer your question, or rather Mr. Fuller Jr. will make every attempt to answer your questions or concerns. And if you do, make your statements brief so that we can Mr. Fuller Jr. can understand your question and answer it in a proper way. So first off, let me start off by saying good morning, Mr. Fuller, and how are you?
Good morning, and I'm still learning.
Very, very good. We have about 5 questions that we're going to try to get to. These questions have been piling up for 1 week, and the phone lines are open, so we will also be able to answer some calls here. One of the calls that came in last week that we didn't get a chance to discuss was a question. Actually, it's a 2-part question. And it just simply says this, and I'm going to try to read it so that you can understand it, Mr. Fuller. It says, discuss some of the ways that white supremacy uses confusion as an essential tool. I think in the past, this is the caller, I think in the past you have referred to one aspect of this as gender confusion. And I'll also ask some of the ways they're doing so in TV, film, and other TV, film, and in other ways that they are doing this, particularly in the area of confusion. Some of the ways in TV, film, and other aspects of the media. So, could you answer that question for this person, Mr. Fuller?
Well, maybe I'll attempt to.
Okay.
From what I have observed, well, for one thing, as an overlay, the entire system of white supremacy is designed to confuse their victims in all areas of activity, not just in one, but in all areas. Now, in the 9 major areas, I just segmented these myself. Economics, confusion in economics. Confused, I mean, when you go, to get a loan and all like that. When you go to buy a car, when you go to make a deal on a house or something like that, you're getting ready to purchase a house. I mean, you need shelter. If you are non-white in the system of white supremacy, you will be confused because you won't be told the truth. That's the first thing you won't get. You won't be told the truth. You will get a lot of fancy words. You'll get a whole stack of papers in which there are words on the papers that you will not get an understanding of what any of it means. And they'll have all kind of little clauses about this, that, and the other and whatnot. And you'll just wind up just signing paper after paper after paper, but you have no idea of what you're signing. Because they, in the system of white supremacy, they are masters of words. And what's the purpose of confusion? The purpose of confusion is so that you can dominate the person that you are confusing. Because anytime, it's just a law of the universe, the most confused person is the person that's easier to dominate. The white supremacists understand that universal principle, which they use every day in economics, in education. Here it is, 2014, and in the Northwestern Hemisphere, they've been squabbling about what kind of education black people are going to have and what for. And they've been doing this for at least a solid 60 years, going back to the 1950s when all of the major arguments came up about integrated schools, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now they're talking about curricula and what's the correct thing to have in the curricula and all like that. So that's economics, that's education and entertainment. There are black people who are in the music field and all like that, and they want to get into the entertainment field, and so they get confusion. They have their songs that they write, and then they go to talk to somebody about it, and confusion immediately sets in about, well, the show business is like this and show business is like that, sign here, sign there, and all back as far back as anybody can remember, particularly some of the older entertainers who are black. They can tell horror stories about going from town to town and not getting paid or making a recording and having no idea of who got the money because they didn't get any. And it's all, deception. All of this comes from that. Mm-hmm. That's the 3 areas of activity right there of the 9. Economics, education, entertainment, labor, job situations. It's the same thing. Why is it? What's the pay scales and all like that? Can you get a job? What are the qualifications for getting a job? Then you link labor with education. You have black students right this minute as I talk, sitting there wondering, what am I going to do when I make straight A's and get out of this school that people are saying is substandard? What's going to be my future? Where can I go? Who do I talk to? See, all this should be set up. When you come out of a school, you shouldn't have a lot of question marks about your future. The question marks were supposed to have been settled before you come out of the school. You know exactly where you're going. I mean, like a beeline. In fact, you have several options all laid out for you. Otherwise, your school is out of sync with the real world. I mean, a person says, well, a lot of black people traditionally have been led, as far back as I can remember, into the teaching field. In other words, they'll say, oh, you go to school so that when you come out of school, you can come back to the same school and teach to other people. But then, can everybody do that? Everybody's going to be a teacher? Say, well, what other fields do you have? Well, cornfield, but we don't have those anymore. So back in the old days, this was the case. All black people went to school so that they could come out of school and come back to the school and be teachers for the next generation. Mm-hmm. And that was it. Because you were not going to be in industry, you're not going to be in all these big, tall buildings, making huge decisions that are going to affect the future of the entire world. No, you're cut out of that. See, so in the labor field, always keep the black people down at the lower levels of everything, okay, the non-white people. Law, okay, and law, well, you can be a lawyer, but you're going to have a lot of black clients and whatnot, and you'll have plenty of those because they're on their way to jail for all of those school dropouts. In fact, you're the lawyer for all of your buddies that you went to school with because they don't have jobs, and then they wind up selling drugs, and then now they're on their way to jail. Now you got to defend them, so that's your job. But how many black lawyers can you have? Trying to get other black people, their schoolmates, out of jail. See, in the system of white supremacy, everything is kind of tight, and you just keep going around in a little narrow circle. if you're black. And so this is where and how do they do it? By confusing black people, telling them that, be patriotic, join the army. I mean, jump to the 9th area of activity, the war section. And then you mix that up with the sexual thing. How does that come about? Well, right now, the plan is they are masculinizing black females. They're making them more and more masculine. They're saying, well, black males are not any good. I mean, you're going to have to be the male and the female. Because the black male, I mean, they are making their hair long and all like that and putting more earrings on and all like that. And their mothers, I mean, that are raising them and whatnot, I mean, they see their mothers dressing up in dresses, so they want to dress up in a dress. I mean, because they don't see any males around doing anything but nodding on the street corner, on drugs, etc. So the white supremacists have a massive move on worldwide now to effeminize black males and masculinize black females. Now, what's the purpose of this? Confusion. When you degenderize people so that they don't know what gender they belong to or don't care, and in another generation, at the rate that they are moving now, black males and black females are not going to care what gender they are. They're going to say, I'm a female today, and I'll be a male tomorrow, and I might even be a male and a female sometime in between. I mean, at the same time. I don't know. What's the difference? I mean, why would anybody make a difference? That's all been designed.
Yes.
White supremacists have this in mind. Now, what purpose does this serve? Well, for one thing, it's confusion. Any type of confusion will always work for the white supremacists if the confusion is in the minds of the non-white people. Then, in a military sense, which is where I was fixing to go just a moment ago, this expedites, because, see, the military picture is changing all over the world, and you're going to have a lot of battlefronts to fight on. So, if you can get a couple of females to consider each other husband and wife, or wife and husband, mix and match any kind of way, you can send them off to fight and die in each other's arms, because they don't want to write home to anybody, because the home is right where they are. Why? Because they have their mates with them. That's what's coming in the future. And it'll be the same way with males. See the black males dropping out of school and all like that, but if they pair off with one or two, it might even extend it. Hey, since it's not about having children and whatnot, not about having families and all like that, rather than just why limit a marriage to just one person marrying another person? Or why not 4 people? Have a package deal. And seeing people who are, degenderized, they'll say, well, yeah, we all the same gender, and nobody's having any babies or anything, so that's not in the equation. And so 4 of us can marry each other, join the army, be in the same unit, and go off and fight and die together. And it's at a very cheap cost. See, you have to think about cost effectiveness. So they can just put a whole bunch of black males and a whole bunch of black females all over the world, fighting on little fronts here and little fronts there, and putting down this rebellion here and this rebellion there, and usually wherever there are dark-skinned people trying to get some more food or something like that, because they're starving all over the world. So go and beat up on them, and that'll keep you busy, and you'll be with the people that you want to be with while you're doing it. So Yes. You won't have to pick up what you call AWLs. Now I'm kind of belaboring this point, but I'm making the point of getting back to what the question was about.
Yes, sir.
Confusion. They will look for confusion. Anytime you start seeing confusion, suspect that the white supremacists are at work.
Yes, sir.
Right.
You're listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. here on TalkTamitRadio.com, radio the way it should be heard. Let's go to the callers because the lines are jammed up. Let's go to caller 1. Go ahead, caller, and what is your question for Mr. Fuller?
Okay, I guess this goes with the same line of thought Mr. Neely Fuller was expressing about confusion. My question is, do you think, Mr. Fuller, that black couples should have children in the system of white supremacy since they themselves are children in the same system?
Do I think that black couples should have offspring? Was that the question?
Because I remember you mentioned that black people are like children in the system of white supremacy. So would it be a good idea for a black couple to really consider having children in this system since it's so confusing and since black people are dominated in the system of white supremacy?
Well, but you can have offspring, but you don't have a support system. You have to keep that in mind, that if you're a black person and you're anywhere on this planet, you can have your offspring. In other words, you can produce children, but you have to remember that in the system of white supremacy, all black people are children. So you automatically have children having children. There's no such thing as a grown black person in the system of white supremacy. What you liken it to is the prison system, which I make that comparison all the time. It's like you're a prisoner of war, and while a prisoner of war, you have offspring. But you and your offspring are subject to the prison system. You're subject to the dictates of the warden in that prison. And the entire planet is a prison called the system of white supremacy for every black person on the planet. So therefore, when black people have offspring, they are not in charge of the offspring. You cannot decide your offspring's fate. The white supremacists make that decision, just like they make the decision for the people who are producing the offspring in all areas of activity. Now, let's just think of the logic. Let's think of the evidence. See, because I'm making some flat statements here, and I don't want to be saying something that's not true. Who are the people that I am dependent on? I'm black. I'm a black male, up in age, way past 21. All right? But I'm still a boy. I'm still a prisoner of war. And I am dependent on people who, for the most part, are hostile toward me, which means if I have offspring, they are hostile toward the offspring because they are hostile toward me. I'm not considered a buddy, a person that's equal. I'm on the favorite list of the people who I have to depend on. No, I'm on a disfavored list. They say you're in a category that's different. You have color in your skin. You're not a white person. I mean, you come last. And if you have any offspring, they come last. And I tell both of you what to do, all of you what to do. So your offspring are really not yours. So, but you can have them because we have to. I mean, that's almost like, otherwise we'd die out. Now, you shouldn't be dying out. The white supremacists like to tailor the numbers, which they are going to do anyway. Now, what do I mean by tailoring the numbers? Like they're doing now with Ebola and HIV/AIDS. I'm saying that flat out. That's a white supremacist operation.
Mm-hmm.
That's Tuskegee experiments all over again.
Thank you for saying that.
Yes. That's, all the signs are there. Why would I say that? They say, well, those are bold statements to make. In fact, those are dangerous statements to make. Why would that fool make statements like that? On account of the record under the system of white supremacy and the way HIV, AIDS, and the way Ebola, and the way a lot of other viruses that suddenly appear from nowhere seem to move. Why is it they always move among dark-skinned people? Always. You know, at one time, you had some diseases that when it swept through and hit everybody. I mean, tuberculosis, you know, there's lots of diseases been around, ancient diseases that got everybody. I mean, when you had a flu epidemic, you had a flu epidemic. It hit everybody. I mean, black and white didn't make no difference. Now you got these well-tailored diseases that just seems to go where black people go. Come on. It doesn't add up. It's not logical. I'm not buying it.
Say it, Mr. Fuller Jr. Say it. Thank you for your call. Let's go to line number 2. Go ahead with your call for Neely Fuller Jr.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, hi, Mr. Fuller. I listen to you every day and every night, and I'm so glad to even speak with you. You just don't know you my hero. For a long time, my family, I'm from Mississippi, and my family was called y'all crazy. That's all we ever heard. So we was ashamed by it. But once I started working in the penal system, I saw how they would trickle young black men to jail. I saw what they was doing. And so by me trying to tell women that they would, okay, when they said, well, I'm depressed, they would give black women with single parents with medicine, and then they will ask you, well, how does medicine make you feel? And I was like, well, if they doctors and they specialists, they should know how it make you feel before they give it to you. And I would tell them, I said, do you sleep all day? And they was like, yeah. And then it dawned on me. I said, they can't raise their kids for all the medicine that they taking. So now that they young men and boys, the streets raising them. So they getting in trouble. So I try to tell them, don't take that medicine. You ain't depressed. You are pressed. You ain't depressed, and you don't have nothing to be depressed about. So if you sleeping all day, you can't basically raise your kids, and that's how they was trickling them into the prison system. I worked there. I saw all of these young black men told all of these ridiculous sentences, 20 and 30 years, for drug charges. I said, y'all didn't even kill nobody, and y'all got all of this time. You be 50 or 60 years old. And I saw that, and then when I started trying to tell the women about it, they would, oh, well, you from that crazy family. Your family crazy. But I thought what he was saying, I had thought like that all my life. And my family thought like that. And we was considered and labeled the crazy people of the town.
So your question would be for Mr. Fuller.
How can I reach more single black women to tell them, look, they using you as guinea pigs, basically.
Okay.
Because if you're a physician or you're a specialist, you should know how the medicine make you feel before you even prescribe it.
Okay, thank you for your question. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
Well, I would just say that all problems are solved by questions and answers. So what you're doing is correct. Just tell them to ask the doctors, what is this for? And if the doctors are saying it's to keep you from being depressed, and you'll say, well, I don't think I'm depressed. I'm concerned about my welfare, just like I guess you're concerned about yours, you know? I mean, what do you mean by depressed? I mean, and let them describe what they mean by depressed, because words are tricky. Say, oh, you're going into depression. Well, I went through a thing called depression. How do you use the word depression? I went through a thing called depression, called economic depression. I mean, and I guess you could say that I was depressed about that, and justifiably so. Some depression is justifiable. It's close to you're coming close to trying to be sane. I mean, in your depression, because you are being depressed and oppressed. Oppressed, that is. Depressed, oppressed. What's the difference? I mean, under what circumstances? You can be depressed about being oppressed, and maybe you should be. There could be such a thing as justifiable depression that can't be cured with a pill. You cure whatever's causing the depression and the oppression that's causing the depression. I mean, let's watch these words here. Insane. What I've written in the textbook for victims of white supremacy is that we are in an insane system. So naturally we're insane. The system of white supremacy is an insane system. What is insanity? It means people out of balance with each other. And everything is out of balance all over this world, particularly under the system of white supremacy. Why? Because people are not getting the help that they need. That's imbalance right there. And people are being mistreated based on color. That's insanity. When you're being mistreated based on color that you had nothing to do with, that is insane. That's a form of insanity, criminal insanity, that is. And the white supremacist is criminally insane, yet they are legit. So you say these things, and when people say that you're insane for saying them, you'll say, of course, but I'm in an insane system anyway. So, duh. What difference does it make? One form of insanity breeds another form of insanity.
You're listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr., and if you have any questions or comments, you may call in by calling 1-877-932-9766. Our phone lines are jumping. Before we get to the phone lines, Mr. Fuller, a question came in, and I did a little research on this. In the system of racism, white supremacy, a caller last week indicated that President Obama is the first black president of the United States. Well, I had been doing some research on that, and I found out from several sources. I Googled up with this particular site, the 7 black presidents before Barack Obama, and I just wanted to get your opinion on that, or what do you think about that? The first president of the United States was a Moor by the name of John Hanson. Now, in that, he gave the dates that he was president. Anyway, I was surprised when I moved down. John Hanson, Thomas Jefferson, Andrew Jackson, Abraham Lincoln, Warren Harding, Calvin Coolidge, and the one that really got me was Dwight Eisenhower. Now, in the system of racism, white supremacy, if this is true, and I have backed it up by at least three sources, why would they say that Barack, or keep on implying that President Barack Obama is the first black president of the United States? Why would they continue to do that when there is evidence and historical evidence to prove that this is not a true statement?
Well, the white supremacists make it by saying things that are not true. That's their strength. Mm-hmm. Because if you deceive people, you confuse them. It goes back to that word confusion again.
Yes, sir.
When you deceive people, you confuse them. When you can confuse people, you can dominate them.
Yes.
And so it's just another form of the same thing. You have to figure the system of white supremacy, the strength of it is confusion. And in order to have confusion in an efficient manner, you have to deliberately deceive people. And how do you deceive people? Simply by saying things that are not true. That's all it is. The system of white supremacy is a very, very simple formula. I mean, just deceit and violence, any way that you can. Deceive people and then use direct violence against them when you can't deceive them. Always try to keep them in a deceptive mode, subject to deception. Because as long as you can deceive people by saying things that are not true, you can control them.
All righty. Hang on there, callers. We'll try to get to you. TalkTameItRadio.com. Check us out on WCRS-FM 98.3 Wednesday and Sunday evenings. Blogs and podcasts are available. Download TalkTameItRadio.com app to your cell or tablet. We go where you go. Radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there. More of your calls coming up next on TalkTameItRadio.com.
TalkTameItRadio.com is the premier internet radio platform offering 40-plus talk radio-style programs professionally produced, optimized for online distribution, featuring Columbus, Ohio on-air personalities. TalkTimeRadio.com offers listeners diverse programming options covering topics such as arts and culture, love, life and relationships, technology, religion, paranormal activities, local and national politics, women's issues, alongside health and wellness. Listeners can access their favorite TalkTimeRadio.com programs free of cost through the website. Download the TTR app to your cell phone and you can take us wherever you go. We have programs on demand to fit your schedule through our podcast. The address is TalkTainmentRadio.com.
We can give you a new heart.
We can help you walk again.
We can perform brain surgery.
We can treat a sore throat.
We can bring life into the world.
We can work so many miracles. But the one thing we cannot do is read your mind.
When you communicate with your doctor,
when you ask us more questions,
you reduce your risk of suffering a medical mistake.
Tens of thousands of lives are lost every year due to medical mistakes.
The healthcare community is working on it, but you can help.
Please, open up. Ask more questions.
What are the side effects?
When should I expect my test results?
Will this medication interact with my other prescriptions?
We can't answer if you don't ask.
Help reduce your risk.
Questions are the answer.
Learn the 10 questions you must ask. Visit www.ahrq.gov. This message brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, and the Ad Council.
Have you been diagnosed with prostate cancer? You may be eligible to participate in a clinical research study for an investigational procedure called High-Intensity Focused Ultrasound, or HIFU. This is a minimally invasive procedure. It is radiation-free, may destroy prostate cancer cells, and potentially has few side effects. This investigational procedure is performed at no cost to the patient. Call today at 1-866-619-6026 or visit www.theprostatecancerstudy.com. Have you been diagnosed with prostate cancer? You may be eligible to participate in a clinical research study for an investigational procedure called High-Intensity Focused Ultrasound, or HIFU. Call today at 1-866-619-6026 or visit www.theprostatecancerstudy.com.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him opening his own clothing store at the age of 18? 1 in 138,000. Excited to be a part of pop culture, he packed for the big city. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. I encourage you to learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Early diagnosis can make a lifetime of difference.
Brought to you by Autism Speaks, the Ad Council, and TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
Goodwill is a global social services enterprise and the leading nonprofit provider of job training programs and career services in the United States and Canada. To pay for its program, Goodwill sells donated clothes and other household items in more than 2,700 stores and online at shopgoodwill.com. Goodwill uses the revenue earned from these sales to fund job training, employment placement services, and other community programs. The goal of the campaign is to increase goods donations to Goodwill, inspire an emotional connection to the Goodwill brand, and to elevate preference for Goodwill.
Supporting minority education. I'm Sean Booker, dammit, from The Melting Pot. I'm here to tell you that as the mother of a high school senior, I know due to financial circumstances, many of America's deserving minority students do not have access to a college education. Since 1944, the United Negro College Fund has sought to provide one. Since 1972, the beginning of this campaign, UNCF has helped more than 300,000 talented students earn a college degree. I'm Sean Booker, dammit. Give a helping hand.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
You got the power.
Alrighty, TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, and you are listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr., and we have been discussing racism, white supremacy in particular, in the area of confusion. We do have a couple of callers on the line, but before we do that, we have to do two things. Number one, Mr. Fuller, can you give the title of your publication and the subtitle, and also how we can obtain this book?
The basic title, the basic title is the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. Now, that's a mouthful of words that doesn't mean anything until you actually look into the book. But there's a subtitle that's right in your face. Textbook, workbook for thought, speech, and/or action for victims of white supremacy. In other words, it's a textbook, workbook for thinking, speaking, and/or acting while you are a victim of white supremacy. Some people say they are not victims of white supremacy, that white supremacy doesn't exist. Those people who say that, the book does not apply to you. But the book is directed toward individual persons who perceive themselves as being subject to the system of white supremacy in one or more areas of activity. And that's what the book is directed to. And that's the basic textbook. And then there's an additional book called a Compensatory Counter-Racist Codified Word Guide. That's an addition to the basic textbook. It's a counter-racist word guide about how to use words, how not to use words, what words to ask questions about when other people use them in a system of racism, because it's supposed to help the individual person on a day-to-day basis to function wherever he or she happens to be in a way that works for him or her in all 9 areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And you can get the basic book and/or the additional textbook by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And what will come up on your screen is the method for ordering.
All righty. Before we move on here, I had to drop this here. Information on the 7 black presidents before Barack Obama can be obtained either from Google or from Fukum and Bug. That's Fookem, Fukum and Bug. The reason why we do that is because we don't want to give our opinions on anything, but we want to always do it from a referential standpoint so that people can look this up. Another question came up, or a comment, when you were speaking about confusion, Mr. Fuller. Someone wrote in and said something about a statement that Raven Simone, she was an actor, or actress rather, on the Cosby Show, and I guess she came out with a statement yesterday that was saying that she's neither black or white and that she wants to marry a woman. And the comment came in about when you address confusion, she seemed to have been, or seems to be, confused. Now, I don't know. I didn't hear her make the statement, but I did see the statement on the television. But again, it addresses what you had just mentioned about being a person being confused, and in particular the degeneration of black people as a whole, which I find just utterly ridiculous. But anyway, you are right on that, and hopefully we will get into the situation. Maybe you can address the situation that happened in Hammond, Indiana yesterday. Maybe you can make a comment near the end of the show. Okay, let's go to line number 3. Go ahead, caller.
Hello?
Yes.
Neely Fuller? I'm still learning, too.
Yes,
I'm calling in reference, it's more of a gender question. Kamitra Barbara, a black woman with her 4 children in Forney, Texas, I think August 29th, was pulled over at gunpoint. Apparently they got the wrong car. She had a red Nissan where they were looking for 4 black males in a beige or tan car. Well, of course, the detective said it's justified. There's no apology or anything. I wanted to ask him, or I want him to mention 2 black women or talk about that black women may be next or are next, and we don't hear about them. We're normally hearing about black males being killed at gunpoint. When will it be our turn, so to speak, in preparation for this war we walk into every day? The second question would basically be the role of the white woman collective and how they participate and or their tactics and how they're used against black people throughout the world, and why does he think or believe that black males and black females have given the white woman a pass? That somehow we always hear it's the white man. It's the white man. No matter how many leaders you listen to from the past, it's the white man, but you never hear his counterpart in crime. Could Mr. Fuller address those issues? Thank you.
Thank you for your call.
Well, I'll address the last question first. I put in the book itself, racist man. I always say that, racist man and racist woman. That's a category. Those are the white supremacists. Those, not all, I'm not talking about all white people, but I'm talking about those white people who dominate and mistreat people based on color. They are the racists of this entire planet. And that's racist man and racist woman collectively. These are the people who believe in and who practice white supremacy, which means dominating and mistreating people because they have color in their skin and are factors that are associated with color in their skin. That's what the system of white supremacy is, and they are partners. They are co-equals when it comes to non-white people. Now, they'll have squabbles among themselves, which you can see on any television show. They call it the battle of the sexes and all like that. But that's an in-house thing. Like all people have squabbles, petty squabbles for the most part, about something or another. Sister and brother, 2 sisters, people all over the world have little differences of opinion and whatnot, and they get into arguments and shouting matches and all like that. But in the system of white supremacy, the white supremacists, regardless of gender, are all in it together. And this is why you have the system of white supremacy. So you can expect that. And so, no, a racist white woman doesn't get a pass or shouldn't get a pass. She's in a co-equal in partnership in crime, because racism is a crime, white supremacy is a crime, the crime of crimes, the crime of the entire universe. When you dominate and mistreat people based on color, that's a crime. That's the crime of crimes. That's a major crime. In fact, the major crime, because all other crimes will flow from that one. And so you have that partnership in crime between both white males and white females, among those of them who have chosen to practice white supremacy. So they are equals. Now, in regards to the incident of someone arresting or accosting a black female with her children in a car or something like that, that's to be expected. And along with that, I want to always say something about what to do about things, because that's what my books are about. Not just what the problems are, but what to do about the problems on an individual level each and every day in all areas of activity. That's how I wrote the book. And so what you do is what I've been saying you always do. When you're getting pulled over, when you see those blinking lights in your rearview mirror say, in 5 minutes, everybody in this car is going to be dead. Put that in your mind. If you're black, put that in your mind. Uh-oh, I see these blinking lights, and I'm being pulled over, and I'm pulling over, and the blinking lights are right on my bumper. And in 5 minutes, I expect to be dead. I expect everybody in this car to be dead. Now, with that in mind, you act like you have just been captured as a soldier on a battlefront, and you have been captured by the enemy whose job is to kill people who look like you. You assume that, whether it's true or not, and you act accordingly, meaning you comply with whatever you are told without fail. Do not say one word of argument at all. You are a captured enemy soldier in the uniform. Your uniform is blackness, and you have been captured in enemy territory by what is potentially an enemy soldier. You make that assumption. Now, it might not happen that way. Hopefully it won't. But you have to have that in mind. If you have anything else in mind, then you're going to get a surprise. And that's one thing you definitely don't want. You've already got enough to upset you already by being pulled over. Mm-hmm. Now, don't make a terrible situation worse.
Well, Mr. Fuller, did you happen to see the video that was reported by the CBS News about the incident that happened in Hammond, Indiana, that describes almost to a T exactly what you were saying?
Where the glass was broken in a car?
Yes, when the police officer...
Yes, I saw that.
Okay.
I saw that, and I expected what happened to happen. I mean, that no black person should be shocked when that glass is flying in the face of your children. You shouldn't be shocked. You shouldn't act like you're shocked. You should expect that. But actually, you should expect that to be a mild case. You should expect to be dead. For them to back off of that car and open fire on everybody in there and keep firing until the guns are empty, all the guns. And then maybe, something thrown in there, that will set the car afire. That's what you should expect. If you don't expect that, consider yourself uninformed as to what kind of world you live in. I'm saying that flat out. I tremble if I'm pulled over because I know anything can happen that I don't want to happen because I didn't want to get pulled over. All right? Now, right now, I'm thinking, hey, this is the last day of my life. These are the last few moments. My whole life is flashing before me, along with those blinking lights. That's the way you have to think if you're black. If you don't think that way, you're confused about the world that you are in.
You're listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. We have two phone lines open if you would like to get in contact with him, and you can do that by calling 1-877-932-9766. We're going to go to line number 1. Go ahead, caller, with your question for Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr.
Yes, thanks for taking the call. I just have a couple of comments, just 2 comments, and that is I've tested what Mr. Fuller has advised us as people to do regarding treatment of one another in my own household. I can't do anything about the neighborhood yet, but in my own household, I have better peace by avoiding conflict, by avoiding contact, and only engaging in problem solving. And when we talk, we speak about ideas, concepts, some current events that support that, but the gossip, don't participate in it, and wow, we were able to enjoy peace in the household so that we can gear up and go out here behind enemy lines.
Okay.
That worked. The other thing regarding Ebola, I've verified that regarding the Tuskegee experiment. Well, with Ebola, I was able to go on a computer and Google what was going on in Sierra Leone and stumbled upon Tulane University cooperating with the United States Army in testing the virus on live people in West Africa, in Guinea and Sierra Leone in particular.
Wow.
I trust what the man is saying because I've been able to verify it. So, very much. That's all I had to say.
Thank you very much for your call. Mr. Fuller, you want to address that? Because you were correct on that.
Well, like I said, everything that I say is speculation because, see, there's no way to prove even that white supremacy exists. There's no way to prove it. If somebody says, and some black people say, someone said to me yesterday, that guy's old school. Where's he been? I mean, on another planet? That white supremacy thing, that's gone. I mean, it's the Chinese you have to worry about, okay? But I say white supremacy exists. And I say it's the dominant government on the planet, and I still say it. And until someone can prove it to me by waltzing me around this planet, and I can see it, and they can convince me of it, I'm going to continue to say what I'm saying because I'm not convinced.
Yes, sir.
That's my criteria.
Yes,
I think I owe myself that criteria because I've been fooled too many times.
Yes,
all
sir.
right.
Haven't we all? In the 9 areas of activity, in particular economics, law, and politics, there was and I did not know this, and I've done some research on this, and maybe you knew this, but I didn't know this. But following the end of the Civil War, the poor economic condition of the newly emancipated Negroes, often called freedmen at the time, was aggravated by the economic devastation of the southern states. The emancipated people had few economic resources or capital and little experience or exposure to private enterprise, and many of our brothers fell into sharecropping and forced labor in the South. And to help alleviate the social economic condition of the community, the Republican-controlled U.S. Congress established the Freedmen's Bureau and passed an act incorporation and charter for the Freedmen's Savings and Trust Company, which was signed into law by President Abraham Lincoln on March the 3rd, 1865. Mr. Fuller, I was not aware of the Freedmen's Bank until a friend of mine sent me some information on, and then I did some research on that. Were you aware of that, and how does that play into the system of racism, white supremacy, particularly in the areas of economics, politics, and law and politics?
Well, all money is controlled by the white supremacists, and that's always been since the beginning of white supremacy. In fact, black people themselves are money. An individual person is money. When you own a person, you have money. That's money. That's a bank right there. And we are, quote, unquote, illegitimately owned by the white supremacists. Every person who is classified as black and are non-white has an owner, and that owner is racist man and racist woman. So we are money. They exchanged us. They exchanged George Washington Carver for a mule. I mean, you can make anything money if you're the masters of people. I mean, money doesn't mean anything if you don't have people. And so if one person masters another person, that's money right there.
Wow. Okay. Wow. All righty. Thank you for that answer. Okay, let's go to line number 3 with your question for Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Go ahead, number 3. Go ahead, caller.
Hello?
Yes, turn down your radio. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just trying to find out, because I know how Mr. Fuller said that black people should not really be in contact with each other unless we have something constructive to say. How does he feel about children being in contact with each other? Black children.
Same principle. Black people, here again, I'm going to say it again, black people are children. We have been put in a childlike position. So it's our position. Doesn't make any difference how old we are. We're just old children, that's all. I mean, because we are in a dependent position. Children are dependent on grown folks. And the only grown folks on this planet where black people are concerned are white. All of them in the system of white supremacy, regardless of age. That's why they call dark-skinned people, or black people in particular, boys and girls, regardless of age. They don't do it nowadays under the refined brand of white supremacy, the refinement of it. They don't do it to your face, but functionally, we function as boys and girls. Why? Because we are totally dependent in every area of activity. I can't name an area of activity where we are not totally dependent. Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Totally dependent on racist man and racist woman. So people often ask me, what do you tell young people? You tell young people the same thing you tell old people. You tell them the truth. But you tell them in such a way that they can understand it, whether they are young or old. Because a lot of old people don't understand things. You know? So anytime you communicate with anybody, you just, first of all, try to find out what the truth is, because you don't want to be spreading false information.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you definitely don't want that. That is a no-no. And that includes Neely Fuller. He better not be spreading false information. Right. Get on Neely Fuller's case if he says anything that's not true. Because I don't want to know anything that's not true. I want to always know the truth about everything. And then I'll relate it, I mean, directly.
Yes,
and no half-stepping. But that's what we need. We need truth in order to get justice.
All righty. Thank you for your call, caller. Just to add, going back to the Freedman Savings Bank, and by the way, you could, just from a referential standpoint, because we don't want to give out, or I don't want to give out false information, you can Wikipedia that one, and you can get some information on that. But Frederick Douglass was the first president of the of that bank, and you want to know what happened to the bank? The bank could not survive the panic of 1873, and it closed its doors in 1874. And over the decades, Congress established a program to reimburse the depositors up to 62% of their savings. But many depositors were never compensated, and scholars have argued that the failure of the bank and its attendant loss of savings led to a fear of savings institution among the segments of the black community. And I bring that up because, Mr. Fuller, my grandmother never trusted banks. She never did. And I always wondered why. And after doing a little research on this article about the Freedman's Savings and Trust Company, and the records are still available, by the way, I discovered the reason why my grandmother did not trust banks. And to be honest with you, and I think you made mention of this a couple of programs ago, with the new technology and everybody putting their stuff in the cloud, I think it's dangerous. Your thoughts on that?
Well, actually, regardless, we're only allowed to do certain things, so we do the best we can. But we always do the best we can with it in mind that anything that we get from the white supremacists of any value, at some point, they will take it back. See, that's what the system of racism is set up that way.
Yeah, repeat that again, please.
Anything that you get that is of constructive value from the white supremacists, they have already set the date that they will take it back.
Wow.
Regardless of what you do. All of the billions of dollars that some black people are now making all over the world, because you've got some black people who are super billionaires in other parts of the world. But they're not going to be able to hold on to it.
I hear you. Thank you so much, Mr. Fuller, for your comments, and thank you, callers, for calling in. TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio the way it should be heard.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com.